Somewhere beneath the frozen earth, buried under layers of concrete, steel, and silence, a machine breathes to life. Not a machine made of gears and pistons, but something far worse. A machine made of flesh. A machine made of memory. A machine that was once a man. The cryo chamber hisses. Frost cracks along the edges of the glass like veins splitting open across dead skin. Inside, the body stirs. His eyes open, but there is nothing behind them. No recognition. No fear. No name. Only readiness. The facility around him is a Hydra installation, one of many scattered across forgotten corners of the world. Deep underground. Off every map. Built to survive wars, collapses, even the end of civilization itself. And yet something has gone terribly wrong here. The lights flicker in sequences that do not match any standard protocol. Monitors display readings that make no sense. Power surges ripple through the walls, and somewhere in the distance, metal groans under a pressure that should not exist. The technicians are gone. The handlers are gone. The chamber that held him has released on its own, triggered not by a mission command, but by a catastrophic system failure. Something tore through the facility. Not an explosion. Not sabotage. Something else entirely. An anomaly. A fracture in the fabric of the world itself. And then there's nothing. No facility, no walls, no ice. He awakens on pavement. Cracked, sun-bleached pavement stretching in both directions beneath a sky the color of old bone. The air is warm and thick with the smell of rust, rot, and something faintly sweet that he cannot identify. Around him, vehicles sit frozen in time, cars with their doors still open. Trucks jackknifed across medians. A school bus tilted on its side, its yellow paint peeling like dead skin. There is no sound, not the silence of a classified operation where every footstep is planned and every breath controlled. This is a different silence, a hollow silence, the kind of silence that exists only when everything that once made noise has stopped living. He stands. His left arm recalibrates. Plates shift and realign beneath the surface, sensors sweeping the environment for threats, signals, anything. There is nothing on any frequency. No communications. No satellite pings, no encrypted channels. The world, as far as his arm can detect, is empty. He begins to move, not because he has been told to, but because that is what he does. He moves, he assesses, he eliminates. The first one comes from behind a rusted sedan. It shuffles more than walks, dragging one leg behind it at an angle that would be impossible for anyone with a functioning nervous system. Its skin is gray and loose, hanging from its skull like wet paper. Its mouth opens and closes in a rhythm that has nothing to do with breathing. He identifies it as a threat in less than a second. A single strike to the skull. The body drops, but it does not drop the way a body should. There is no tension in the fall. No reflexive clutching. It simply ceases, as if whatever was driving it was never truly alive in the first place. Before he can process this, another appears. Then two more. Then five. They emerge from vehicles, from behind buildings, from the tree line along the highway. Drawn to sound, to movement, to the simple fact that something living still exists in this place. He eliminates them without hesitation. Each strike is precise. Each movement conserves energy. He does not waste a single motion. But with every kill, the same question echoes in the back of his mind, in a place where questions are not supposed to exist. What are these things? They are not soldiers. They are not operatives. They do not fight back with skill or strategy. They simply come. And they do not stop coming until they are destroyed. No mission brief arrives. No handler speaks through his earpiece. No extraction coordinates flash across his display. There is only the road, the dead, and the silence between each kill. And somewhere deep inside the Winter Soldier, in a place buried beneath decades of programming and control, a single thought surfaces. He is alone. And for the first time and longer than he can remember, no one is coming to tell him what to do next. He moves through the wreckage of civilization the way water moves through stone. Quietly, inevitably, without leaving a trace unless he chooses to. Every building he enters is cleared in under 90 seconds. Every room swept from corner to corner with the kind of practiced geometry that only decades of combat training can produce. He checks sight lines, identifies structural weaknesses, catalogs exits. He does this not because he has been ordered to, but because his body no longer knows how to do anything else. The world outside is a graveyard that forgot to stay still. The dead wander through parking lots and intersections like sleepwalkers trapped in a dream that will never end. They gather in clusters near collapsed structures, drawn by echoes, by the wind pushing a door open and closed, by the memory of sound even when no sound exists. Bucky watches them the way a predator watches prey it has already decided not to chase. He notes their patterns, their response times, their limitations. They are slow, they are predictable, and they are, in every measurable way, beneath him. He scavenges without urgency. Food, water, medical supplies, bladed weapons that will not require ammunition. He organizes what he finds with military precision, storing caches at intervals along his route, each one hidden in locations that no untrained eye would ever discover. He is building a supply network without being told to, running operations without a commanding officer, and he does not question it. He simply does. But there is something else in this world that the walkers cannot explain. Something that the silence between kills does not answer. There is no objective. Every mission he has ever known had parameters. A target, a timeline, a voice in his ear confirming extraction. This world offers none of those things. It stretches out in every direction without purpose, without borders, without end. And for a man built to follow orders, the absence of orders is not freedom. It is a void. He discovers the survivors by accident. A thin column of smoke rising from behind a warehouse on the outskirts of a small town. He approaches from elevation, observing for 11 minutes before making contact. There are 9 of them, men, women, 2 children. They are thin, frightened, and armed with weapons they barely know how to hold. When he steps into their camp, the reaction is immediate. Guns raised, voices shouting. A woman pulling the children behind her. He says nothing. He simply stands there, his metal arm catching the last light of the day, his eyes scanning each of them with the same cold calculation he uses to clear a room full of targets. They see what he does next. A walker stumbles from the tree line behind the warehouse. Before anyone can shout a warning, Bucky has already closed the distance. 1 motion, 1 kill. The body crumples and he turns back to them as if nothing happened. No urgency, no relief. No emotion whatsoever. To the survivors, this is not reassuring. This is terrifying. They have seen men kill walkers before. They have seen panic, desperation, adrenaline. They have never seen anything like this. A man who kills the way other people breathe, without thinking, without feeling, without any indication that the act of ending something registers in his mind at all. They let him stay, not because they trust him, not because they feel safe, but because in a world where death walks on 2 legs, having something more dangerous than death on your side is not a choice. It is a necessity. And so the winter soldier becomes part of something he was never designed for. A group, a community, a fragile, frightened collection of human beings trying to survive one more day. He does not understand them. He does not understand their fear, their grief, their desperate need to hold on to one another when the darkness comes. But he stays. Not because he cares, not yet, but because in the absence of orders, proximity to the living is the closest thing to a mission he can find. And in the quiet hours before dawn, when the others sleep and the walkers moan softly in the distance, the winter soldier stands watch over people who are afraid of him. And he does not know why. Fear is a living thing. It breathes. It grows. It spreads from one person to another like a virus, quiet at first, then impossible to ignore. And in a world already drowning in fear, the survivors discover something unsettling. The thing they fear most is not outside the walls. It is standing right beside them. His name, they learn eventually, is Bucky, though he offers it the way someone might offer a word in a language they barely remember. Distant, as if the name belongs to someone else entirely. He keeps them alive. That much is undeniable. In the 2 weeks since his arrival, walker incursions have dropped to almost nothing. He patrols a perimeter that no one asked him to establish. He eliminates threats before anyone else even knows they exist. He sleeps in intervals of exactly 90 minutes, never more, never less, always positioned between the group and the nearest point of vulnerability. He is, by every survival metric, the most valuable asset they have ever had, and they are terrified of him. It starts with whispers, the way he moves without making a sound, The way his eyes track movement, the way a machine tracks a target. The way he killed 3 walkers in the dark last Tuesday without waking a single person, and no one knew until they found the bodies arranged neatly by the gate the next morning. Not tossed aside, not left where they fell. A man named Paul is the first to say it out loud. He pulls 2 others aside near the water supply and speaks in a low voice that he thinks Bucky cannot hear. Bucky hears every word. Paul says the man is not right. Paul says he has seen killers before, seen soldiers, seen men broken by the world. But this is different. This is something that was broken before the world ended. Something that was made to be this way. And things that are made to kill, Paul says, do not stop killing just because you ask them to. The children avoid him. Not because anyone told them to, but because children understand danger on an instinctual level that adults have long since learned to rationalize away. They watch him from behind their mothers, eyes wide, fingers gripping fabric. And when he walks past, they go silent. It is the silence that begins to reach him, not the silence of the dead world outside. That silence he understands. That silence is tactical. The silence of the living is something else. It is the silence of judgment. The silence of a jury that has already reached its verdict but has not yet spoken it aloud. For the first time in this world, possibly for the first time in decades, Bucky feels something that is not programmed into him. It arrives not as a sudden revelation, but as a slow, spreading ache behind his ribs, in a place where emotions were supposed to have been permanently removed. Doubt. Not doubt in his abilities. His abilities are absolute. Not doubt in his mission, because there is no mission to doubt. This is something new, something that has no tactical application. He begins to wonder, in fragmented half-thoughts that surface only in the quietest moments, whether the survivors are right, whether he is the monster they see. He watches them around the fire at night. The way they laugh at things that are not funny, simply because laughter is the only weapon they have against despair. The way they touch each other's shoulders, hold each other's hands, cry quietly into their sleeves when they think no one is looking. They are weak. They are slow. They are inefficient in nearly every measurable way, and yet they are alive in a way that he is not. They feel this world. Every broken road, every cold night, every lost friend. They carry it all, and it weighs them down, and still they move forward. Not because they are programmed to, but because they choose to. Bucky does not understand choice. But standing on the edge of their firelight, watching the shadows flicker across their faces, he begins to wonder if he once did. And that wondering, that tiny fracture in the architecture of what Hydra built, is the most dangerous thing that has ever happened to the Winter Soldier. The walkers are a problem that solves itself with patience and precision. They are slow. They are predictable. They operate on a single directive, the need to feed, and that simplicity makes them manageable for anyone willing to stay calm and strike clean. But the living are not simple. The first sign comes on a Tuesday morning. Bucky finds it during a perimeter sweep. Boot print. A pattern of movement that does not belong to anyone in the group. 3 individuals moving in a staggered formation designed to minimize their visual profile from elevated positions. Trained movement. Deliberate. These are not wanderers or refugees stumbling through the wilderness. These are people who know how to move without being seen. He does not tell the group. Not immediately. Instead, he follows the tracks for 6 miles, mapping their route, their rest points, the places where they stop to observe. And what he finds at the end of the trail removes any doubt about what they are dealing with. A compound, guarded, roughly 40 to 50 individuals operating within a structured hierarchy. Vehicles maintained and fueled. Weapons cleaned and distributed according to role. Sentries rotating on a schedule that changes every 8 hours. This is not a survivor group. This is a faction. An organization built on control, territory, and the willingness to take from others what they cannot produce themselves. He returns to the camp and delivers the information in the same flat tone he uses for everything. There are people nearby. They are organized. They are watching. The group needs to prepare. The attack comes 3 days later. Not at night, when the group expects it, but in the gray light of early morning, when exhaustion makes people slow and the mind is not yet fully sharpened from sleep. They come from 2 directions simultaneously. A classic pincer movement designed to divide attention and prevent organized retreat. They are armed. They are efficient. And they clearly expected this to be easy. They did not expect Bucky. The first wave breaks against him like water against stone. He moves through the attackers with a fluidity that does not belong in combat. It is too smooth, too quiet, too precise. He disarms the first man before the others even register that something has gone wrong. The second falls to a strike that targets a nerve cluster with surgical accuracy. The third raises a weapon and never finishes the motion. In under 40 seconds, the first wave is neutralized. Not killed, neutralized. And that distinction, though the survivors do not realize it yet, matters more than anything else that happens in this fight. The second wave hesitates. They have seen what happened to the first. They regroup behind cover, attempting to establish firing positions and coordinate a more cautious approach. Bucky reads their movements the way a chess player reads a board. He knows where they will go before they go there. He knows which one will break first, which one will try to flank, which one will make the mistake of thinking that distance equals safety. He dismantles them with the patience of someone who has done this thousands of times. Because he has. In alleys in Eastern Europe, on rooftops in the Middle East, in facilities so classified that their existence was denied by every government on Earth. But something happens during this fight that has never happened before. One of the attackers is young. Not a child, but close enough that the difference becomes irrelevant. He is crouched behind an overturned vehicle, hands shaking, weapon pointed at nothing in particular. His eyes are wide, not with the calculated aggression of a soldier, but with the raw, unprocessed terror of someone who has been told to fight and does not know how. Bucky sees him, identifies the threat level, calculates the response, and stops. For a fraction of a second that feels like an hour, the Winter Soldier stands perfectly still. His body knows what to do. Every fiber of his training screams a single word: eliminate. But somewhere beneath the programming, beneath the ice and the chair and the decades of erased memory, something else speaks. It says no. The boy runs. Bucky lets him. And in that moment, something shifts in the architecture of who he is. A crack that began with doubt now widens into something he cannot name. After the fight, the survivors look at him differently, not with less fear. Fear does not disappear that easily, but with something else layered beneath it, something cautious and fragile. Curiosity, because a weapon does not hesitate. A weapon does not choose. And whatever Bucky is, whatever he was made to be, something inside him just made a choice that no programming ever allowed for. The survivors do not trust him yet, but for the first time they wonder if maybe, eventually, they could. And Bucky, standing alone in the aftermath with blood on his hands and silence in his ears, wonders the same thing about himself. There is a difference between fighting because you are told to and fighting because you decide to. It is a difference so vast, so fundamental to what it means to be human that most people never think about it. They simply act. They see a threat. They respond. They protect what matters to them without pausing to examine the chain of command that led them there. But for a man who has never once in his remembered existence made a decision of his own, that difference is everything. The hostile faction does not retreat after their failed assault. They regroup. They reinforce. And within a week, the survivors begin finding evidence that the next attack will not be a raid. It will be an extermination. Supply lines appear along the roads leading to the compound. Scouts increase their patrols, and one night, Bucky intercepts a two-person team carrying enough explosives to level the entire camp and everyone in it. He neutralizes them silently, brings the explosives back, lays them on the ground in front of the group and says 4 words. They are coming back. No one speaks. The weight of what he is telling them settles over the camp like a second darkness. They have survived walkers. They have survived starvation, sickness, loss. But an organized force with resources and intent is something else entirely. It is the kind of threat that does not stop because you hide. It finds you, and it finishes what it started. The group looks at him, not with the fear they once had, not with the cold suspicion that marked his first weeks among them. They look at him with something far more dangerous: hope. And Bucky, for reasons he cannot fully articulate, decides to meet it. He plans the counterattack over 2 days. Without consultation, not because he does not value their input, but because this is the only language he truly speaks. Tactical assessment, terrain analysis, force projection, resource allocation, the grammar of war. He maps the compound from memory. identifies 3 points of structural vulnerability, calculates guard rotation patterns based on the schedules he observed during his earlier reconnaissance, determines the optimal window for approach, the ideal team size, and the precise sequence of actions that will dismantle the faction's ability to wage war without turning the operation into a massacre. That last part surprises him. In every previous operation, the objective was total. Eliminate the target. Leave no witnesses. Clean extraction. But now, planning alone in the dim light of a lantern while the survivors sleep around him, he finds himself building a strategy that accounts for something he has never accounted for before. Not weakness, not sentimentality. Mercy is a tactical variable. The understanding that killing every person in that compound would make him exactly what Hydra built him to be, and that perhaps, in this dead world, being something else might matter more. He moves on the compound at 3 in the morning. The sky is moonless and the air carries the faint smell of rain. He crosses the open ground in complete silence, his metal arm absorbing ambient temperature to eliminate thermal signatures. He reaches the outer wall in under 4 minutes. The first sentry never sees him. The second turns at exactly the wrong moment and is rendered unconscious before a sound leaves his throat. Bucky moves through the compound the way a shadow moves through a room, present everywhere, visible nowhere. He disables their communications first, then their vehicles, then their armory. Each action is executed with a precision that borders on artistry. Locks picked in seconds. Wires cut at junction points that will take days to repair. Weapons disassembled and scattered across locations that would require a full inventory team to recover. By the time the compound realizes it is under attack, the attack is already over. The leader of the faction wakes to find Bucky standing at the foot of his bed. The metal arm gleams faintly in the darkness. The leader reaches for the weapon he keeps beneath his pillow and finds nothing. His voice is low and carries no anger, no satisfaction, no threat beyond the simple truth of what he is saying. Your weapons are gone. Your vehicles are disabled. Your ability to project force beyond these walls no longer exists. You can rebuild. You can try again. But if you move against those people one more time, I will come back. And next time, I will not leave anyone awake to hear this conversation. He leaves the way he came. A ghost passing through a world of the dead. When he returns to the camp, the survivors are awake, waiting. Not of the faction, of not knowing. Bucky walks into the firelight and sits down among them. He does not deliver a report. He does not describe what he did. He simply sits, and for the first time, his presence among them does not carry the weight of something alien and unknowable. Someone hands him a cup of water. He takes it, and in that small, unremarkable gesture, something enormous happens. The Winter Soldier accepts something that was not ordered, not required, and not part of any mission. He accepts kindness. And the man who was once a weapon begins, slowly and imperfectly, to remember what it feels like to be something more. The days after the counterattack are quiet in a way that feels different from the silence of before. Before, the silence was empty, a void where life should have been. Now the silence carries something else within it, potential. The sense that what comes next has not yet been written, and for the first time, the people who will write it have a choice in how the story goes. The survivors begin to rebuild, not in the desperate, scrambling way they have been surviving up until now, but with intention, with planning, with the cautious optimism of people who have been given a reason to believe that tomorrow might actually arrive. And at the center of that transformation, quietly and without announcement, stands Bucky. He does not lead them. Leadership implies authority, and authority implies a hierarchy that he has spent his entire existence being crushed beneath. What he does instead is something more subtle and far more powerful. He shows them how to fortify a perimeter using materials found within a quarter-mile radius, how to create early warning systems from wire, cans, and tension, how to move through open ground without exposing themselves to threats they cannot yet see. He teaches them to read terrain the way he reads it, not as a landscape, but as a map of possibilities, both dangerous and useful. He teaches the adults how to fight, not with the cold efficiency of his own training, but with practical techniques adapted to their strength, their limitations, their fear. He does not push them beyond what they can handle. He does not demand perfection. He meets them where they are and builds from there, one lesson at a time, one correction at a time, one moment of encouragement at a time. And it is in those moments of encouragement that the change becomes most visible. Because the Winter Soldier does not encourage. The Winter Soldier does not nod when someone finally holds a weapon correctly. The Winter Soldier does not place a hand on a shoulder and say, "Again, try again, you are almost there." But Bucky does. The distinction between those two identities, the weapon and the man, has been blurring since the moment he let that young attacker run. Now, day by day, choice by choice, the blur resolves into something clearer. The weapon is still there. It will always be there. But it is no longer the only thing that exists within him. He begins to eat with the group. Not standing at the perimeter with his back to them, but sitting among them, close enough to hear their conversations even if he rarely joins them. He learns their names, not as designations for assets to be protected, but as identities belonging to people he is beginning to recognize as individuals. There is Maria, who lost her husband in the first week and has not spoken his name since, but carries his watch on a chain around her neck. There is Paul, who feared Bucky most openly and now trains with him every morning without complaint. There is Elena, 7 years old, who one evening walks up to Bucky while he sits sharpening a blade and places a small, crudely drawn picture in his lap. A picture of a man with one silver arm standing in front of a house. He looks at it for a long time, longer than he has looked at anything since arriving in this world. Something moves behind his eyes. Not the cold calculation that governed his every glance before. Something warmer. Something that hurts in a way he does not want to stop. He folds the picture carefully and places it inside his jacket, close to his chest, close to whatever it is that still beats there. The survivors notice. They do not say anything. They do not need to. The shift is felt, not spoken. The man who arrived among them as something terrifying has become something else. Not safe, not soft, not entirely understood, but present, willing. Choosing to be here, day after day, when he could disappear into the wasteland and never be seen again. Bucky does not call it healing. He does not have a word for what is happening to him. But if he did, it might sound something like this. He is becoming someone, not the someone he was before Hydra. That man is gone, and the grief of that loss is a wound that may never fully close. But someone new. Someone built from the wreckage of what was taken and the quiet courage of what remains. The settlement is not much to look at. A cluster of reinforced buildings surrounded by a perimeter fence made of chain link, scrap metal, and determination. It would not survive a military assault. It would not impress anyone accustomed to the fortified cities of the old world. But within its borders, something extraordinary has taken root. Not the desperate survival that defined the group before Bucky arrived. Real life. The kind that includes laughter, arguments over small things, the sound of children playing in a courtyard that was once a parking lot. The kind that includes plans for next week, next month, next season. The kind that dares to imagine a future. Bucky stands on the watchtower as the sun begins to set. The horizon stretches out before him, an endless expanse of green and gray, where the world continues its slow and different decay. Somewhere out there, walkers still roam in their endless, purposeless migration. Somewhere out there, other factions gather strength, make plans, and prepare to take what is not theirs. The world has not healed. The dead still walk. The living still suffer. And there is no sign that any of that will change soon. But here, within these walls, something endures. Below him, the survivors move through their evening routines. Fires are lit. Food is prepared. Voices carry upward on the cool air, mixing with the sound of the wind and the distant call of birds that somehow still exist in this broken place. They do not look up at him with fear anymore. Some wave. One of the children, Elena, shouts something he cannot quite hear and then laughs. He does not wave back. He is not there yet. But the corner of his mouth moves, just slightly, in a way that it has not moved in 70 years. The survivors have begun to tell stories about him. Not to him, but among themselves around fires in the quiet hours. They speak of a man who appeared from nowhere when the world was at its darkest. A man with an arm made of metal and eyes made of winter. A man who could have walked through this dead world alone and never looked back, but who chose to stop. Who chose to stay. Who chose to stand between them and everything that wanted to destroy them. They do not call him the Winter Soldier. That name belongs to a different story. A story of ice and control and a man who was not allowed to be a man. They call him the Guardian. And on the watchtower, as the last light fades and the stars begin to appear over a world that does not deserve their beauty, Bucky Barnes keeps watch. Not because he was ordered to, not because his programming demands it, but because these people are his. This place is his. And for the first time in a life defined by obedience, the choice to protect is entirely his own. The weapon is still there. It will always be there. But tonight, and every night that follows, it serves something greater than any mission ever could. It serves a man who finally remembered how to choose, and he chooses to stay.